welcome to the first episode of Louie Lineups. So, this is a podcast dedicated to fantasy football. That's all we'll be covering. I will not be covering game reactions or how Daniel Jones played or how Tom Brady is still alive and playing football. No, just strictly fantasy football. That is why I'm here. That's what this podcast is about. Strictly fantasy. So, for episode 1, I'm just going to tell you the Fantasy 101. Just small things, best ways to set up your leagues, best scoring styles, best, ways to do PPR, non-PPR, so on and so forth. And then we're going to get into how to structure your draft, what players you want to take where, what positions you want to take where, and so on and so forth. So let's get into how to set up your league. So if you're between PPR and non-PPR, I believe the best way to go is half PPR. Half point per reception, I believe, is the best way. It doesn't overvalue a catch, but also doesn't undervalue a catch at the same time. So, if you guys have a monster day with 8 to 10 catches, you get your 4 or 5 points there. But just getting 8 to 10 catches for maybe a total of 50 yards is a lot of points for someone that only tallied up 50 yards. So you go from, a 10 reception, 50-yard day is 15 points in a PPR league, where in a half PPR, that's only 10. And in a non-PPR, it's only 5. So I think, just having the middle ground of a half PPR is the best way to go about setting up your league. So I recommend the half PPR. If you want a high-scoring league, if you want a lot of points, I go for the full PPR. And if you really want a touchdown-related league, something low-scoring, you can do non-PPR, which I don't recommend, but like I said, if you want a low-scoring, touchdown-oriented league, you can go with no PPRs. Other scoring things, this is kind of all based off ESPN Fantasy, how I know that they set things up. So small scoring adjustments I'd make is you can look into kickers and things like that, and points that they miss for missing extra points, because obviously they moved it back, so it happens much more often. So just make that like a -1. It doesn't need to be anything more than that. Now if you miss something from inside 30 yards, you could go ahead and make that -2 if you want to value kicking a little bit. But then anything 40, anything between 30 and 50 yards should really only be about -1. And then anything 50 plus, you shouldn't get minus at all, because you're just trying a 50 plus yarder. And then making field goals, obviously, if it's a field goal, you get 3 points. Then 40 yards 4, 50 yards 5, and extra points are 1 point. You get 1 point for an extra point. So that's kind of how I like to set up my kickers, so on and so forth. Going on to, running back, wide receiver, yardage points, every 10 points is going to equal 1. So it doesn't matter how you get there. If you want every 10 yards is 1 point, that's how you score it, fine. You can do 0.1 for 1 yard, 0.2 for 2 yards, 0.3 for 3, etc. Or you can do every 5 yards is half a point, which I don't hate. Doing the 0.1 yards for, 1 yard, 0.1, it's excessive, but it works, because it obviously means that every 10 yards is 1 point, which is what you want from your wide receivers and running backs. So that obviously works. The half yard, half point, I like the most, to be totally honest, because it's just a nice middle ground there. 5 yards, you can get a half a point. So, that's the difference between you don't want the 90-yard day and an 85-yard day, meaning the same kind of thing. So that half point kind of means a lot. So I kind of like doing the half point system. But as long as 1 yard equals, 10 yards equals 1 point, you're good to go there. Quarterbacks, 25 yards, 1 point. Touchdowns are worth 4 or 5. The best way to do this quarterbacks that are throwing for touchdowns get 4 or 5 points. If you do 4 points, that means that when they throw an interception, it should only be -1. If you do a 4 to -2 ratio and your quarterback has 1 touchdown, 2 picks on the day, that average out to nothing. If your quarterback throws for a touchdown and 2 picks, the way that 4 -1 work, you can net 2 points there. So I like having it at a 4 points to -1, or if you do 5 points, you can keep it at -2. So if you do 5 points per touchdown throw, you can do -2 for an interception. If you do 4 points per touchdown throw, you got to do -1 for an interception. You don't want to do anything more than that. And then quarterbacks, rushing yards is the same, and everything rushing, receiving for any player is going to go down as the same thing. It's not different. Your running back doesn't not get points for receiving the ball, and so on and so forth. So yeah, the best, you make sure that if you do 5 points, it's -2 for an interception, and if you do 4 points for a throwing touchdown, it's -1. And defense is the defense. You can kind of play with it how you want. I feel like a good average team scores, you hold a team to under 20 points. I feel like that's worth some sort of points. I know that they have 5 points if it's 0 to 3. And then if you go from 3 to 10, it's like 4. And then you go 10 to 14, it's like 3. But I kind of think if you're under 20 points, you just definitely get under 21 points. You should definitely get a decent amount of points for that. And then you don't want your defense to kill you every week, because I even would prefer drafting without defenses, and kickers are so irrelevant. But anything between 20 and 29 points, I wouldn't take away or give anything. I just make it a flat 0. And then if you go over 30, then that's when you can kind of start taking away points. Same with the yardage, total yards. If a team goes for anywhere between 300 to 400 yards, you can that's fine. You can kind of leave it. If a team has 500 yards, that's when you can slowly start taking off points and add points when it's when they hold a team to 300 yards or less. But other things, defensive touchdowns are 6 points. One thing they do, they keep safeties at 2, which I don't like. I think a safety should be worth more than 2 points in fantasy. It doesn't happen often, and it's a big play for a defense. When your defense gets a safety, that's like, even more monumental than getting a touchdown sometimes. So I like to bump up the safety points from 2 to 4. I think that makes a lot more sense. So that's pretty much does it for the scoring here through your positions. But now that we got the scoring checked out, setting up your league. So if you're in like a 12-person league, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, a flex, 1 quarterback, defense and kicker is pretty standard. If you're in a 10-team league, you can add another flex if you want in there, just so you can get an extra wide receiver in your lineup, or even a tight end or running back if you have a surplus. So I like to do, if you're in a 10-teamer, you can grab an extra flex in there. If you're in an 8-team, I kind of like the double quarterback style. If you're in an 8-team fantasy league, I feel a little sorry for you, but do a double quarterback. You can even do, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 2 flexes, a tight end, defense kicker. Go crazy in an 8-team league. Definitely try to do 2 quarterbacks, 3 wide receivers. You can do 2 running backs, 2 flexes, and then your defense and kicker. But 14-team league, obviously, same as 12, and that's just typical quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receiver, flex, tight end, defense, and kicker. So that's kind of how you want your positions going here when you set up your league for a certain amount of teams. So let's get into now how to set up your draft. What should your draft look like? What's the best strategy? Do you really want a good quarterback? Do you really need a good tight end? I'll tell you now, fantasy is won through your running backs and your wide receiver depth. You gotta have good running backs and you gotta have good wide receivers. You can't draft Patrick Mahomes with your first or second pick and expect to win the league. If you do, it means you had some great waiver wire pickups. But you really got to be careful drafting running back, tight ends, and quarterbacks early because you don't want it to take away from some of your running backs. So I say within your first 4 picks, you better have 2 running backs. If you don't have 2 running backs within the first 4 rounds of your draft, you're in trouble. You're in a lot of trouble. It's really hard to find running back depth, with injuries and so on and so forth. I mean, you can look on the waiver wire last year. You grabbed James Robinson. That was a hell of a pickup. But other than him, you were just kind of picking up, dropping guys. Hoping that you get a big week from like Nyheim Hines of the Colts, so on and so forth. So you really got to make sure you have 2 starting running backs in the first 4 rounds. Need it. You got to have it. You just have to. Those are musts. And, then your next pick, if there's, like I said, if you feel like Kelsey fell, you could go take Kelsey. Or, if you really want a good quarterback and, in the 3rd round, Mahomes is there or Kyler Murray's there, you can say screw it and go pick him up. But make sure you have your 2 running backs in the first 4 rounds. So, really important that you have those 2 running backs in the first 4. And I say that because, like I said, there's not a lot of depth. Wide receivers, lot more depth than running backs. You can get a great wide receiver in the 8th round, 9th round. You can get a guy that ends up being top 15, top 20 in the 7th or 8th round, where a running back, that's a lot less likely. A lot less likely you're going to get that production from a 7th round running back. But a 7th round wide receiver, you definitely can. So I value running backs very high, and you gotta take them early. Wide receivers, you can find, diamonds in the rough late in drafts and guys who, are going to have breakout years and so on and so forth. As for quarterbacks and tight ends, you got to feel it out in your draft. If you feel like one tight end just went in the 4th, then none went till the 5th again, then all right, maybe now it's time for me to take that tight end. You don't want to be the very first one taking them, but you also don't want to be the very last one taking them. So you got to kind of feel it out in your draft and know, all right, a couple decent tight ends went. If I want this guy, I got to take him now. Or you can say, you know what, the 2 tight ends I really wanted went already. Don't just take one to take one, because that one you probably took, you could get a round or 2 later. Don't jump on a tight end don't reach for a tight end. Same thing with a quarterback. Don't reach for a quarterback that you can probably get a little bit later just because they're going. So they let them fall while everyone's taking their tight ends and quarterback. You take that wide receiver steal. You take that. Last year was like a Stephon Diggs. You take that guy. You don't worry about having to, because tight ends are going, you go, okay, I need one now. If the right tight end is there, make the pick. But if it's not, you gotta let it go and be patient and let the draft kind of come to you. Don't go after the draft. Just let the pieces kind of fall into place. Because remember, the guys that are taking the tight ends, they're not going to take tight ends their next pick. So if everyone before you's taking the tight end, if you're doing a snake draft on the way back, you're going to be that first. You're going to be first. So the guys behind you aren't going to take a tight end. So you can now just kind of let it fall. Let it all fall into place. See what happens. And that's the same thing with quarterbacks. Quarterbacks and tight ends kind of seem to, they could kind of start going in the same kind of rounds. And that's when a wide receiver slips, or a running back like a Chris Carson slips, or, Josh Jacobs might slip. Somebody slips. That's when those happen. When guys reach for tight ends and, reach for that quarterback, and then that guy in your league, you're like, wait, how does he have this guy, and this guy? He has that guy because someone reached for let's say it's, Darren Waller's a great option, but let's say they took him too early. That's why, another team can get better. Or some guy took Josh Allen too early, or they're taking in Aaron Rodgers too early. You don't want to be that guy that takes it too early, that lets these great wide receiver, running back options fall to someone that's doing the draft, running back, wide receiver heavy, because there's 2 spots in your lineup. You need depth at those spots. So the key to the draft is getting those 2 running backs in the first 4 rounds, making your great wide receiver picks, and making value tight end and quarterback picks. Value picks in quarterback and tight end. And don't be the guy that reaches for a defense or a kicker in like the 10th round. You don't be that guy. The defenses, they barely ever work out. You find the top 3 defense on the waiver wire normally by week 3. So don't go ahead and jump on a defense. I honestly like jumping a kicker before your defense because at least the kickers, you know the offense that they're going to run. You know what kickers are going to score a lot of points and so on and so forth. I kind of almost like taking a kicker before we even take your defense. But those are dedicated for 2 of the last three rounds. They really are. If you really love the way your team looks and you're like, I really don't need any guy right now, and you only have 3, maybe 4 bench spots left, and you want to say, I'm going to go for the number 1 kicker. I want someone like Justin Tucker or Harrison Butker or Will Lutz. If you want to go for one of those top guys, I got no problem with that. But if you're going to reach for a kicker before a defense. I feel like you know what you're going to get out of a kicker more than you know what you're going to get out of a defense in fantasy. So that's kind of my strategy here for drafting. Your sleepers can come in. Kind of want your sleepers in rounds 6, 7, 8. That's kind of when you have a feeling about a guy. Those are your reaches, rounds 6, 7, 8. If you have a real hunch on a guy, get him in those rounds. If you have a guy that's going 8th, he's been going in the 8th round a lot. Last year, my reach was J.K. Dobbins. I loved him. I thought he was going to be fantastic. Kind of didn't. He never. Justice Hill and Ingram, didn't, and Gus Edwards didn't really help his case, but he came on strong at the end of the season. So, Dobbins was a rookie last year that I loved, that, I kind of got the feeling that he was going in the 7th round a lot, so I made sure I got him in the 6th. That's kind of your reach, your sleeper range. You get a feel for when guys are going, and then, bam, the round before, take them. Because who cares if you reach? If the guy ends up being better than the guy you would have taken anyway, it doesn't really matter. People say, oh, you could have got him in the next round. But, yeah, it's like, what if I didn't? What if I didn't? And I would have took, a different guy. Like, let's say it was, Kenyon Drake was someone last year that was just like, you could have just took him because he's ranked high. But it doesn't matter if you take him and a running back that you love, let's say like Chris Carson, who I believe finished higher than him last year in fantasy points, was an option. And you went with Drake over Carson, and you should have said, screw it, I should have just knew it. I knew it. I should have just took Carson. You don't want to have those I knew it moments where you settle on a running back that's ranked higher or a wide receiver that's ranked higher, even though you love someone else below him. So that's another way to, think about your draft, is when you want to go get these guys that you love. Because you want to have a team that you like. You don't want to have a team where it's like, oh, he was a good value picks, just value picks down the line. You got to have some bold picks. And that's where rounds, 6, 7, 8 come in, where you grab those guys. And there'll be other people in the league that go, damn, I wanted him too, but I thought he was going to fall. You want to be that guy that people go, damn, you took him. How'd you take my pick again? Because they weren't willing to jump and reach and go get those guys. But, if you have hunches on players, and, next week I'll talk about some sleepers that I might like for those kinds of rounds. But that's kind of how you want to set up your draft. Get 2 running backs in the first 4 rounds. Then later on, if you find a good quarterback tight end pick, rounds 4 through 6-ish, you can go get them, but you don't have to force yourself. And then, rounds 6 through 8 is kind of where you can take your sleepers and get the quarterback tight end that you kind of want there. Those rounds are 4, and then, the 10th on is where your depth comes in. Maybe a couple handcuffs for running backs. Like if you have Zeke, you might want to stash Pollard in there. Those are your later, past 10th round, the 10th round picks. That's for your, 2 spots for your kicker, defense, handcuffs, and you're going to want to have, your backup quarterback and backup, tight end if you like to have those two, which I do. But those are where you want to take those backup quarterback, backup tight ends, your defense kicker after round 10. That's when you go after that. You have your sleeper tight ends and, your maybe quarterbacks like a Trey Lance, Justin Fields that you say, yeah, let me keep this guy, see what happens. All right. So that's pretty much how, good way to set up your league. That's how you kind of want to go about your draft. And to end this show here, we're going to get into my quarterback rankings. Going to be some quarterback rankings and my tight end rankings. And then next week we'll do wide receivers and running backs. So let's start off here with quarterbacks. I'll get into my quarterback rankings now. And no surprise, coming in at number 1 is Patrick Mahomes. Slam dunk. He's your number 1 overall quarterback. He's a guy that if you see in, if you're picking early in the 3rd round, or you're not going to have a pick till late in the 3rd and you want to pick him in the 2nd, not going to say no, don't do it, because that's when he's going to go. So if you love Patrick Mahomes, you're in a quarterback-heavy league where, touchdown passes are probably worth 5 and, they're playing, your yardage points are stacked, you can go Patrick Mahomes here. These are your tier 1 quarterbacks. So you can go Patrick Mahomes, and then after Mahomes, you can go Kyler Murray if you like him too. I mean, those are 2 guys that you're probably not going to see round 4 with them. And if you do see them in round 4, I would jump on them. Absolutely jump on them if they're there in round 4. That's Patrick Mahomes and Kyler Murray. But they're probably not making it out of the 3rd. I really don't see them getting to the 4th. They're going to go early in the 3rd round or late in the 2nd, those 2 quarterbacks. They're studs. They are studs. But, if you're comfortable, you kind of feel like you can maneuver your way around, taking quarterback that early, then kind of so be it. If you love your first 2 picks in the 3rd round, you're like, I would love to have a great quarterback, then by all means go ahead and do it. If you kind of were stuck on a 2nd round pick and you feel like, go for depth. There are quarterbacks you can find late in the draft that'll be just as productive. And plus, Mahomes has that that lingering ankle issue, and Murray is a runner who can take a bad hit to the head at any time. That's the thing about these one slot positions in quarterbacks and tight end. You take it early, and then boom, if a guy misses 3-4 weeks, that's one slot in your lineup that you didn't that you're not going to have a good backup for. So I suggest making sure you have you're running a running back or 2 that you love and you feel really good about it. Maybe there's a wide receivers there that aren't top notch and you can get them late, then go ahead and go for one of these top quarterbacks. So I broke my quarterbacks down to tier 1, and then I have a 1A. So these are your quarterbacks that are still good to take, maybe 4th round, 5th round quarterbacks here. Those are Aaron Rodgers. Don't be fooled. A lot of people have him outside the top 12. I don't. I do not. My 1A tier, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, Russell Wilson, and Lamar Jackson. These guys are all ballers. These guys can run it. They can sling it. They can throw for 3-4 touchdowns, and you won't blink an eye. Lamar Jackson, you might, but he just runs for so many yards that it's worth he's worth making it into the 1A. So between Rodgers, Allen, Wilson, Jackson, if you like any of those quarterbacks, like I said, 3 through 6 there is arbitrary. You can kind of put in whatever order you like, but that's your tier right there. That's your definite tier. Those are quarterbacks that are going to be gone by the latest round 6. I don't see any of those guys really falling past 6. I'd be surprised if they even get to 6. So these are guys that are going to go in the 4th, 5th rounds of quarterbacks. So, like I said, you got 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers you love, and you can grab an Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, Wilson Jackson. I'm all for doing that. Got to go do that. 100% have to go do that. That's your 1A tier right there. Tier 2, you got Herbert, Tannehill, Stafford, Dak, and I threw Brady there. Brady was on the cusp for me. He was kind of on the cusp because you're just in awe of Tom Brady with how well he's playing and so on and so forth for how many years. But you also don't want to be the guy that takes him on his, retirement year, which would probably be the worst year of his career. But it's Tom Brady, and you never know. So he makes my tier 2. Herbert can run it, can throw it. You saw a lot of him. The sophomore, some concern is still there for me. It's definitely still there in Herbert. We saw, quarterbacks take a step back in their second year because he took a huge step forward in his first year, and you don't want to see this guy take a huge step back. But he's so talented that he's still going to make your tier 2. So you got him, Tannehill. Just look at the weapons this guy has. You just added Julio Jones. You got to stuff the middle to stop Henry for defenses. So you're going to have Jones or Brown. One of them's getting one-on-one coverage because if you're going to double, both of those guys, you're just going to hand the ball to Henry. Tannehill's going to have a very good year. He's a smart quarterback. He can read defenses. He knows where to go with the ball. He's not the flashiest. He's not, let me bring you back in the fourth quarter down 3 touchdowns. But he's a quarterback that does the right things, makes the right throws, and, more importantly, can limit interceptions, throw some touchdowns for you. And they just brought on Julio Jones. I was a big Tannehill. I was not big on that guy. But, he had a good season last year. He really did. Top 10 quarterback. Now you're going to add Julio Jones? All right, I'm sold. I'm sold on Tannehill, tier 2. Stafford, got some weapons. He's, a team that's been able to run the football. I know that they're not going to have Cam Akers for the whole season. Stafford's always had a problem in Detroit. No one really, they haven't had a 100-yard rusher until last year, I think, since, Stafford was there. It's been a while since the Lions ever had a rushing game. So they're going to go, he's going over the Rams. We'll see how his rushing game holds up, if that can take some pressure off of him. But he's got guys like Woods. He's got guys like Kupp. He has a good tight end in Tyler Higbee. Hawkinson was one of his favorite targets last year, him and Marvin Jones. So now he's going to Kupp, Woods, Ridley. You can argue, this is the best weapons he's had since Calvin Johnson. I know he had Kenny Golladay, but he was hurt for a while. He always seems to be hurt on the Lions, there, Golladay. But, Woods, Kupp, Higbee. They even signed Deshaun Jackson. So a lot of speed on that offense. They're going to try to stretch the field. Stafford's going to try to make some long throws. And Stafford's a guy that puts up points. He loves throwing the football. They're going to throw the football a lot, the Rams. They really are. So Stafford definitely makes it tier 2. He's a great quarterback to go grab. Dak Prescott makes tier 2 just because, everyone's got this guy, top 5, top 6. And I'm just he's the guy that dropped for me. He's coming off that ankle surgery. I don't know if he's going to be completely 100% week 1. You might see this guy be tentative in running the football now. You might see, you got to see if he plays scared. That's a serious freaking crack of an ankle this guy had. So Dak falls to my tier 2. Not someone that I'm in love with drafting, but, he is a tier 2 quarterback if he's healthy. That's why he's in tier 2. Someone that I'm not in love with, someone that I'm probably going to stay away from. And Tom Brady, tier 2. We went over him already. Now, tier 2 guys, those are your find your quarterback 6, 7, 8. Those are your 6, 7, 8 rounders that they should be there. Go grab them. Go grab them in round 6, 7, and 8. That's kind of where those guys are going to go. So if you have your 2 running backs, your 2 wide receivers you love, and you're between a tight end and quarterback, if you got a tier 2 quarterback there you get him. You go get him. Round 5, 6, 7, around there. Go get those tier 2 quarterbacks there. Maybe you have 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and a nice flex option that you like, and you go get those guys. Rounds 6, 7, Those are good rounds for those guys to go. And even 8, some of them might drop to 8. But don't reach for them. Don't go, 4th round, I got to take Herbert. He might go there, but you can say, you know what, I can get a guy like Tannehill, who's going to put up very similar numbers, and I can get him 2 rounds later. A guy like Stafford, get 2 rounds later. So, tier 3, I got Joe Burrow leading it off because, coming back from ACL surgery, you want to see how he plays and so on. He's got weapons. This man's got Boyd, this guy's got Higgins, he's got his buddy Chase from LSU back. So, Burrow headlines tier 3 for me. You got Matt Ryan, who's without Julio this year. You got a rookie in Kyle Pitts. You still have Ridley, who's reliable, but definitely lost some weapons there. He doesn't really have a running back. They don't really have a run game much at Atlanta. Mike Davis is their number 1 running back right now, who backed up McCaffrey in Carolina. So I'm a little hesitant on Ryan. I'm not sure how great he's going to be this year, but if he can fling it. He can throw for 400 yards, no problem. But I'm kind of staying away from him. Kind of staying away from Roethlisberger as well. It probably his last season. Could be his last season. His body's so broken down. He might have trouble throwing that deep ball. You're going to see a lot of quick passes out of Roethlisberger. I don't want him holding on to the ball long. Jones. I got Daniel Jones in tier 3. There's no way he's putting this guy in tier 4. Let's be real. Jones is the fastest quarterback in the NFL, according to, metrics last year. Man hit 21 miles an hour on a run. Lamar Jackson didn't hit that number last year. Russell Wilson didn't hit that number. Kyler Murray didn't hit that number. Daniel Jones hit that number. I mean, you go that fast, you trip over your own feet. So, Jones is a guy that they might want to use his legs a little more. I know he's had the hamstring, and the year before that he was dealing with another lower body issue. But look, if Jones can run the football for get you 3-4 points just for running the football game, gotta love that. And it's just getting the touchdowns with him. His rookie year was so great with the touchdowns. He was throwing 3-4 touchdown games. Last year it was a huge step back, huge. But this year, you go out, you get Galladay. You get Kyle Rudolph for the red zone because Evan Ingram was dropping passes and just not reliable. So they went out, they got Kyle Rudolph for the red zone. So you have Galladay in the red zone. You have Rudolph in the red zone. You get a guy like Kadarius Toney in the draft that can make some plays behind the line of scrimmage or, just in front. He's a guy that you got to get the ball in his hands quick and let him do his thing. And Sterling Shepard, who's going to be in a more familiar spot. He's going to be in the slot a lot this year, I believe. And he's not going to be facing quarterback 1 coverage anymore. So Jones might be able to get him the ball a lot more this season. It's a target that he's familiar with and knows. And then you have Darius Slayton, who's kind of your, Galladay's your main deep threat, but Slayton can also stretch the other side of the field and, hopefully have a bounce-back season, run some good routes. So, look, Jones someone that I don't hate in Tier 3. I'd probably take him over Ryan and Roethlisberger, but I got him at 15. But just because of last year and how poor it was, I had to put him a little below. But Daniel Jones is someone that I wouldn't be surprised if he finished between, 8 and 10 overall in fantasy points. I wouldn't. The talent's there. It's just a matter of, do I trust Jason Garrett to put him in the right offense? And, he's got to make the right reads, make the right throws. Now, an interesting one after Jones, I got Jameis Winston here. Look, Winston can throw the football. This guy was a top fantasy quarterback that people don't realize when he was down there with Tampa and he was throwing to Mike Evans, This guy and Vincent Jackson there. He could ball. Jameis can ball, and he got laser eye surgery. It's a big deal. The man can see now. The man knows who he's throwing to. He's been in Sean Payton's system for a year now. He's learned it. This is basically his second year now in that Saints offense. This is a great, let's see what happens pick. This is a great guy to take as a backup, Could be huge. Could be a great trade piece, too. If you're a guy that drafts Josh Allen and then, in the 11th, 12th round, you take Jameis Winston and he's having a top 5 season because he's just slinging it, and he could see better, and he's having a great season. This guy was number 1 overall pick. Could be good trade value. You could end up dumping him for someone, your tight end's not doing great. You trade him, maybe can grab George Kittle in return somewhere. So Jameis Winston's an intriguing one. I don't think he's going to be middle of the road. I think he's going to be great or he's going to stink. Winston's not someone I'd necessarily draft to start on my team, but I would consider him for a backup role, definitely. Definitely would. Saints are such a passing system that I'd definitely consider him there. Following that, I got Tua. Tua can run. The left-hander can sling it. He can throw the ball deep downfield. He's got to make his throws. Not sure how, good he looks in the red zone, if that makes sense. I feel like he's not. The Dolphins, I feel like, are going to try to run it in the red zone a lot, limit Tua's turnovers. But, look, Tua can sling it. He can throw it. He's not a bad backup to have. I don't know how much I trust him. I feel like I didn't get a great view of him last year. We kind of had him and Fitzpatrick going back and forth. I'm slightly hesitant on Tua. I'm not all in yet. I feel like you got to wait one more season for him to really crack another tier or move up and be that number 1 fantasy guy. So, yeah, Baker Mayfield, who we know Cleveland's offensive line is fantastic. They love to run the football. They run the football big time. They love to run the football. In the red zone, Baker's not throwing it. He's running it. He's running the football. So Baker's a guy that, if they're down, they're going to throw, and he can throw behind a great offensive line. But the minute pressure kind of gets in his face, he's got to scramble, and not big on Baker in those situations. But his offensive line holds up. I mean, Baker can throw for 3-4 touchdowns. Really could. But they really like to run the ball with Chubb in the red zone. They love him. He's going to get a lot of touches in the red zone, taking away from Mayfield and guys like Landry and Odell. They're going through Chubb. That offense goes through Chubb. I got Kirk Cousins coming in at 19. Thielen, Jefferson, got some weapons. Has Dalvin Cook as a check down. Can see him racking up a lot of yards, but another red zone thing where they're going to try to get the ball to Cook. Whether it's setting up on a screen or handing it off, Dalvin Cook's the guy there. Dalvin runs that team. But, third and longs in the red zone, 3rd and goals in the red zone, Kirk's going to be throwing the ball and he's going to be looking for Adam Thielen. So I don't hate Kirk Cousins. He's not too bad. I mean, he's not a guy that's going to probably show out for 40 points and win you a fantasy game like Murray or Mahomes could. But, Kirk's someone that can go out there and get you 15 to 20 points a week, I'd say, consistently. I probably think he's going to average around 16 fantasy points, 17 fantasy points a week. Maybe a top week he gets to 25, but I don't expect this guy to have big games. I expect him to be a little consistent, but big games, I don't see it. I can see him having some duds, some 9-pointers, 8-pointers that they just, he throws for 200 yards and just doesn't have any touchdowns because they run that offense through Cook, man. Dalvin Cook is the Minnesota Vikings. And finishing off tier 3, I got Ryan Fitzpatrick with his new Washington football team and Riverboat Ron at the helm. He's flashy. He can make plays. He makes plays. That's what Ryan Fitzpatrick does. He's going to make plays. If he gets flushed in the pocket, he can run it. The guy picks up first downs. He really does make plays. The guy threw like a 30-yard pass being hooked on his face mask last year. Guy makes plays. Fitzpatrick makes plays. So he's a guy that can go off one week. He's also a guy that could be benched by week 5. So he's a huge risk to me. We know the Fitzpatrick cycle. It's he's a backup. Quarterback gets hurt. He plays well. He gets a starting job. He stinks. He's a backup. Then that next season, the starter gets hurt. He comes in. He's fantastic. He gets a starting job. So we'll see. This is his starting job. I'm a believer in the Fitzpatrick cycle. I don't love him on Washington right now. He's got Scary Terry. That's a great weapon for him to have. They picked up Curtis Samuel. And, Logan Thomas is a pretty good tight end there to look for in the red zone. So, Fitzpatrick will have his moments, but I think they really want to get Antonio Gibson going this year. I think they want to involve him a lot in this offense. So, on to tier 4, the last tier. These are quarterbacks that, might be undrafted, guys that you can take really late, and so on and so forth. Look, people had Jalen Hurts almost in tier 2. And I'm just like, no, absolutely not. Jalen Hurts didn't show me much last year. He didn't. He had a good game against the Cardinals, but he didn't show me much. He really didn't. I'm not a huge Jalen Hurts guy. Not a big believer in Hurts whatsoever. I'd be surprised if he finishes top 15. I mean, I think around 20 is much more likely for him. I just don't see it. I really don't. The Eagles' weapons that they have, they drafted Jalen Reagor last year. Didn't turn out great. They got Devonta Smith, top 2 wide receiver in this class. He's dealing with that MRI sprain, but he's apparently healthy. He's actually playing in preseason. So we'll see what the Eagles' offense looks like. It's a very risky pick. I wouldn't put my eggs in Jalen Hurts' basket whatsoever. Absolutely not. I would take every quarterback listed above him before Jalen Hurts. I really would. Now you got Trevor Lawrence here. The Jaguars are just not a good football team. If Trevor Lawrence was the quarterback behind Cleveland's O-line, I'd probably have him in Tier 1A. But he's just on the Jags. They got Shenault, who's, last year was a rookie. So he, hopefully learn the playbook better, get a little better, be a weapon for Lawrence. And they have Marvin Jones Jr. from the Lions, which I like. I do like that they went out and got a veteran wide receiver for Lawrence. Some guy that can be a safety blanket. And DJ Chark, I just feel like hasn't come around. Guy's been in the league for a few years now, just waiting for him to come around, just not doing it. So I'm not in love with Lawrence's weapons. Their running back, they got his boy from Clemson, so he has familiarity with his running back. So when I see screens, check downs to Atine, and James Robinson probably going to end up taking a back seat there, which I don't really think he deserves. He was great last season, but Atine's got a lot of talent. He's familiar with Lawrence, bringing in a familiar face there. So we'll see what Lawrence does. I mean, he's still a rookie, still got everything to prove. I wouldn't draft this guy to be my starting quarterback, but I would definitely look into stashing him, making him a backup, and seeing what happens, getting a feel for it, feeling it out. Then you got Derek Carr coming in at 23 with the Raiders. He's sporadic. He has some games where he looks horrible, and he has some games where he throws for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. You're like, damn, Derek Carr looked good. So he's very sporadic, very all over the place. He's a great guy to have if he's facing a crappy defense on your starting quarterback's bye week. That's another way to look at things. When's Patrick Mahomes bye? A week 9? Oh, who does Derek Carr have week 9? He has the crappy, Jets week 9. It's like, oh, okay. I can go Carr against the Jets week 9. That's a good play. So, kind of see Carr fits your bye quarterback. That's not a bad play. I wouldn't bet on him, playing well against the Broncos or the Chiefs or the Chargers. I wouldn't bet on him playing well in those games, and that's six to hit their games right there. So in those 6 games, I don't see him thriving. I can see him thriving against bad teams, and if he fits your quarterback's bye week, yeah, go after Carr. Why not? And Jared Goff, I'm staying away from Goff as much as I can. I really am. I mean, new system with the Lions. They lost Jones. They lost Galladay. I barely know who their wide receivers are. That offense going to try to go through DeAndre Swift, and their offensive line's not great. The Lions are going to be a bad team. I'm staying far away from Goff. I really am. Darnold is kind of having his own rebirth of a career here in Carolina. Back with Robbie Anderson. And we'll see what he does. I mean, he's got a new start, fresh start. See what he can do. He's got McCaffrey. Le'Veon Bell was nothing with the Jets, so he's got a running back in McCaffrey. Take some pressure off him. Could reunited with Robbie Anderson. Sam's a wild card. He is. If you're not in love with your quarterback and you like Sam Darnold, if you like Sam Darnold, go for it. I say, why not? Why not make him your backup quarterback? If you like him, go for it. I don't see anything wrong with that. If you like Sam, go for Sam. as your backup, of course, not someone that's gonna start on your team, but definitely able to be a backup. You got Zach Wilson coming in, 26, the Jet, the rookie. He's just there because he's going to start every game. That's why he's there. If you need a starting quarterback for a week, I guess you could use Zach Wilson, but I need to see it to believe it first. He's someone that you can watch, keep on your radar. He's probably not going to be drafted, someone that's going to sit on the waiver wire, but I don't trust him. I don't trust him one bit. But if he has a first couple big weeks and you want to pick him up, go ahead. I need to see it first. Definitely need to see it first with Wilson. Now, my watch for has 3 people. Trey Lance. Trey Lance can ball. If he gets a chance to play, he looks like, at his absolute prime, he can almost look like Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes combined. He's got the arm strength and throwing capacity of Patrick Mahomes, but he's not there yet. He doesn't have the accuracy or anything like that, but he has the capability of it. And Lamar Jackson, he can run. Trey Lance can run, make guys miss. I don't think he has the vision and running back ability Lamar Jackson does yet, but look, those are tools that he has, and he can end up being like one of those 2 quarterbacks. He really can. But I wouldn't draft him because Garoppolo's still there. If the Niners start out hot and they're winning with Garoppolo, they're not going to make a change. But the minute they lose, they could. The minute they drop 2 in a row, or the minute they're 2 games, if they lose the first 2 games, you're going to see Lance. Even if they're 5-0 and they go 5-2, you might see a quarterback change to Lance. The guy can play. He's someone that I would consider stashing. Now, there are other people high on Justin Fields. I'm not. I'm not one of those people. Do I think Andy Dalton's great? No. Do I think Fields much better? No. Do I think Fields will play this year? Yeah. Do I think he'll have an impact and lead the Bears? No, I really don't. I don't. He could say preseason, no, he's great. He was great. He's playing against second and third teamers. He's playing against guys that probably aren't even going to be on make their teams. So I'm not huge on Fields. I just think that it's too much of a risk. Really is. Not big on Justin Fields. You can watch out for him. You can, if you're someone that loves him, by all means, I wouldn't, keep him as my number 2 quarterback, and I wouldn't carry 3. But if you have if you feel like you love Justin Fields, then I guess you could stash him there. Someone that I think might go undrafted. I think Trey Lance might get drafted just because of his explosive ability. I don't see that in Fields. I see that in Lance. I don't see it in Fields. And Taysom Hill. Look, if Winston isn't playing well, Taysom Hill might take over. And Taysom Hill is just a running back that can, tight end kind of guy that can play the quarterback position as well. So, we'll see what Taysom Hill will take over for Jameis. Not sure. Not someone I draft, but definitely someone that I'll just kind of keep an eye on Sundays. See what he's doing. If he's going to be in the game with Winston or not, but he's someone I got my eye on. He could, if Winston's not playing well, the Saints think highly of him. So, there's your quarterbacks right there. There it is, 1 through 26 with 3 bonuses. So, let's move on to tight ends. Let's try to make this go quicker. So, tier 1, it's just Kelsey. That's it. Kelsey's the only guy you're going to take before the start of the 3rd round. You're not going to take tier 1A in this before the 2nd. Don't do it. Waller, Kittle, Pitts, Andrews, those are, the earliest you want to take these guys are round 3, late round 3. I'm looking for these tight ends 5. If I can get any of those tight ends in round 5, I might jump on them. Probably jump on them. If I like the way that my first 2 running backs or 3 running backs and wide receivers look, round 5, if I'm in love with my team, I might reach for a tight end there. I would go get Andrews, Pitts, Kittle, Waller, and maybe I wait Andrews 1 more round than the other 3, but he's in that class. Look, Pitts is replacing Julio. They need somebody. They do. Atlanta needs someone to throw to. They think highly of Pitts. They took him that high in the draft. So Pitts is going to get some some looks, a lot of looks. Kittle coming back off an injury, so I kind of be skeptical with him. Waller showed he was durable, and he's a great target for Carr. Waller's the number 2 tight end for sure, followed by Kittle off an injury. And I like the riskiness of Pitts. I like that. What's going to happen? Could he be number 1 tight end? Could he be better than Kelsey? Probably not. Could he be there at Waller? Sure. Could he be all the way down there with Jonnu Smith? Maybe. But he's got a lot of upside, and I like taking risks on tight ends because, you kind of know what you're going to get from the rest of them. You're lucky to get 10 points a game from your tight ends these days. And Andrew's obviously a favorite target of Lamar Jackson. So there's your 1A. Those are guys, I'd really look for in the 5th. If any of those guys are there in the 5th, I would consider jumping on them. Maybe Andrew's in the 6th, but 4th, 5th round, you can think about it. If you like the way your running backs and wide receivers are shaping up, you can think about it. Tier 2, Hawkinson. Number 1 target in Detroit. He is. And Goff likes to throw to his tight ends a little bit. I know he had Woods and Kupp that he was going to all day in LA with the Rams, but Hawkinson is legit. He's a good target. Great target to have. This is his 3rd season, I believe. Going to get looks. Definitely going to get red zone looks as well. Higbee with the Rams, I like because Stafford throws to his tight ends. He's the one that made, Hawkinson kind of relevant last year. If teams are zoned in on Woods and Kupp, who's going to be open? It's going to be Higbee. And Stafford has no problem hitting his tight ends. So I like Hawkinson. I like Higbee. Goddard, is kind of a safety blanket for Hurts. I think that's his favorite target, to be totally honest. The Philly wide receivers are question marks across the board. You don't know what you're going to get at Devonta Smith in his first year, especially after spraining his MRI in training camp. So Goddard's going to be a safety blanket for Hurts. I think that they'll go his way, look his way a lot. Noah Fant on Denver. Not in love with him. He's still got Drew Lock or Bridgewater throwing to him. I'm not a big Noah Fant fan. But he does make tier 2 because he gets looks, he gets targets. He's not bad. But I would definitely take Higbee and Hawkinson first in tier 2. Then, you got Goddard, Fant, and Logan Thomas is a good red zone threat. He's a guy that gets looks his way in the red zone. He's, touchdown or bust, Logan Thomas. Logan Thomas ain't going to catch 8 catches for 100 yards. He's not doing that. Only Kelsey's doing that. Maybe Waller's doing that, or Kittle. We'll see what Pitts does with that. But Logan Thomas is not that guy. He's the guy you kind of hope has 3 catches, 2 touchdowns. So he gets those red zone looks. If you're touchdown-oriented league, Logan Thomas is a good pick. Definitely going to be a good pick in a touchdown-oriented kind of league. But if not, if you miss out on your tier 1A tight ends, I think Hawkinson and Higbee are going to be good. I could have put them in 1A, but they just haven't taken that stride yet. I do like them this year though. I like both of them a lot. And Goddard following them because Hurts is safety blanket there. Tier 3, Mike Gesicki. Tua likes to throw to his wide receivers. Even at Alabama, he was throwing to. He's got his buddy Waddle there now. He was throwing to his wide receivers big time. He was throwing to Judy. He wasn't throwing to his tight end. So I'm not huge on Gesicki this year. That's why he slips to tier 3 for me, and not in tier 2. Irv Smith Jr. I don't hate him because Kyle Rudolph's gone in Minnesota now. So he kind of bumps up a tier for me. He's not a horrible pick in my opinion. Jefferson, Thielen, focusing on the wide receivers. Who does that leave open? Linebackers going to find Dalvin Cook in the flat. You might get Irv Smith Jr. open. He's not a guy that I think he could put up zeros. Absolutely, the guy could put up zeros. But then a couple weeks, you might see a couple 20s from Irv Smith Jr. So we'll see. We'll see what he does. He's not a horrible pick. I don't hate him. But because I said Kyle Rudolph's gone now, so he's going to have to be the guy in Minnesota. You got Robert Tonyan, who should have been a Pro Bowler last year over Evan Ingram, back for this season. I think he just had a career year last year. I'm not huge on Tonyan. They got Devontae Adams. They're going to go to him. They got Aaron Jones, too. They're going to get him involved. But Tanyan's not bad because Aaron Rodgers is such a good quarterback. So if you're between Gesicki or Smith, Tanyan, I could go Tanyan, no problem there. Any of these guys you can take, 11 through 15, whichever one you like the best is really your go-to guy. Just because I have Gesicki at 11 and Ingram at 15 doesn't mean I like Gesicki, a lot more than I do Ingram. I think Ingram's hella talented. He just can't put it together on the field. He's got so much talent, but the drops, crucial fumbles, it's excruciating. That's why the Giants went out and took Kyle Rudolph from the Vikings. But Evan Ingram's talented. He's a guy that can have 100 yards receiving in the air and a touchdown. We see he's got breakaway speed for a tight end, so he's very talented. Yeah, Ingram's very talented, but man, the Giants really don't trust him, and that's why he's tier 3 for me. But like I said, if you take Ingram after your tier 2 wide tight ends, fine, good with that. Ingram can go before any of those guys if you wanted to. But, the addition of Kadarius Toney, Sterling Shepard, Galladay, you don't have to go to Ingram as much anymore. Last year it was Shepard and Ingram. That was the Giants' weapons with Slayton downfield. But this year it's not like that. You got Galladay, you got Shepard, you got Toney, and Slayton. So you're adding 2 guys in there that can take reps away from Evan Ingram. Before him, I skipped over Blake Jarwin for Dallas. Reliable. Just get reliable. I can see him consistently having 4 or 5 catches a game, but you just hope one of those is a touchdown. But CeeDee Lamb's a baller. They got traded for Amari Cooper a few years ago. He's great. Michael Gallup's good. Got a lot of wide receivers there in Dallas to compete with to try to get some targets and touches. So Jarwin, you kind of know what you're going to get. You're not going to get huge days from him, but you're just hoping that you get some touchdowns out of him. Kind of like a poor man's Logan Thomas there in tier 3 for Dallas. And they have Zeke obviously in the red zone to give the ball to. So Jarwin, play action in the end zone. That's what you're kind of hoping from Blake Jarwin. Not a huge fan. And then you got Jonnu Smith in New England. Don't like Cam Newton. Don't really like Mac Jones. I don't know who's going to be throwing in the ball. That's why he starts off tier 4. He's talented, but I don't see it. Gronk with Tampa, getting a year older, playing with Tom Brady, who's a year older. They still have Antonio Brown. They still have Mike Evans. They still have Chris Godwin. They got a lot of weapons there. But, Gronk's still Gronk. Gronk can catch you 2 deep touchdowns, 2 deep balls, He can have a crazy game where he's got 4 catches for 115 yards, and because he got 50-yard catches up the seam, and have a touchdown. But Gronk's not what he used to be, obviously. But if he's a good backup tight end to have, if you can find him on a good matchup week, and maybe Evans goes down, Godwin goes down, or Brown goes down, Gronk's going to get an increased reps, and him like Scotty Miller, if them 2 are the guys there, Gronk's a decent guy to have. Love Gronk. He's Gronk. He can be your backup for sure. Austin Hooper in Cleveland, like I said, they love Chubb. They want to run Chubb. But Hooper's a good guy to have off that play action in the end zone. Good guy to have off that play action for third down. He's a good tight end to have on your team. NFL team, I don't know if he's a good tight end to have on your fantasy team. Because they're not going to look his way. They're going to try to get Odell involved. They're going to try to get Landry involved. I just don't know how involved Austin Hooper is going to be in this offense inside of play action. 19, Anthony Firkser of Tennessee. Look, you got Jones, you got Henry, you got Brown. I mean, don't tell me they're going to try to get Firkser crazy looks, crazy reps. He's just a guy that might be open a lot. If they're over the top on Brown and Jones, the linebacker takes Henry in the flats or whatever, even though, Henry's not much of a pass catcher, but do you get Firkser going up the seam? You might have breakdown in coverage, and he's the guy that's open. So I can see him being kind of like a big play guy for Tennessee, but not so much week in and week out. He's someone you could keep your eye on. He probably will go undrafted, but he's not a horrible play. Jared Cook, I can't believe he's still in the league. This guy feels like he's been in the league forever. Just forever. He's been with the Raiders, he's been with the Packers, now he's with the Chargers. Jared Cook's been in the league for a long, long time. But Herbert will throw to Keenan Allen, and Herbert's going to get Mike Williams involved. Herbert will check it down to Austin Eckler. Jared Cook, this guy's not going to be like Antonio Gates-ish for the Chargers. They're not going to try to get him involved big time. I'm not big on Jared Cook this year. Gerald Everett, he's competing with Will Dissly in Seattle there. They have Lockett. Wilson throws to Lockett. Wilson throws to Metcalf. So I see Gerald Everett kind of with the same I do Austin Hooper a little bit with play action and faking it to Carson, so on and so forth. Tier 5, these are guys that are probably going undrafted. Hunter Henry in New England. Look, you got Jonnu Smith there. You got no quarterback there. He's had injury problems. Someone I'm staying away from. Ebron, Ben Roethlisberger will throw to Ebron 8 times a game and then 0 for 3 weeks and then go back to him 8 times. So Ebron's kind of all over the place. You have Deontay Johnson there. You have Juju there. And James Washington there. But, Ebron, if you in dire need of a tight end, he's not awful to have. He can end up having a decent week with 4 catches, maybe 2 of them are touchdowns. But like I said, Ben can target him 8 times one week and then 0 the next 3, and I wouldn't be surprised. Jimmy Graham in Chicago, just strictly a red zone threat at this point in his career. Maybe red zone third down, but he's not someone that's going to get a ton of looks. And Allen Robinson and David Montgomery trying to get their run game going, and Andy Dalton there. I'm not huge on Jimmy Graham. But if you need a plug and play, go ahead. And his buddy Cole Kmet, who might take Jimmy Graham's spot this year. Was drafted in the first round last year by the Bears because the Bears love drafting tight ends. So you'll have him. Not in love with him. Nothing that shines about him to me. Just someone that's there in Tier 5. Taking, Jimmy Graham's spot there, but Graham's obviously could still get those red zone looks. Zach Ertz, if you have Dallas Goedert, you might want to look out for Zach Ertz. Goddard seems to me like he's surpassed Zach Ertz. He had a horrible last season, Ertz. I think he was injured as well at some points, but he just didn't really do anything. Was such a good tight end a few years ago. Now he's just left the field. And I threw this on there for the hell of it, but O.J. Howard for Tampa Bay. If something happens to Gronk, you're probably going to want to go get O.J. Howard. He's going to get all the tight end reps if something were to happen to Gronk. So he's someone just kind of keep an eye out on. If something happens to Gronk, you go get O.J. Howard. So that's going to do it for quarterbacks and tight ends here. I went a little longer than I wanted to go, but overall, solid first episode, I think. Next week, we'll get into some sleepers to watch and, guys to reach for, guys to avoid. And we'll go to... We'll break down some running backs and wide receivers next week. So thanks for listening. First episode of Louie Lineups. And good luck in your fantasy drafts.